Okay, so this will be my second recording of this today, and I hope it will be my last. I was trying a new recording style, and it failed miserably. So, what I was trying to discuss is why it's important for leaders to know history, to study historical figures, and to pick up tidbits about leadership style and how people act, and both acted historically and act in modern times. It's one of the reasons why I am not a fan of revisionist history, the revisionist history that is taking over the United States today, because it distorts so much good, good resources that a leader can take and utilize. So, when you study like leadership in general, it started in the 1800s, like the study of it really. But in the early 1900s, like 1900 to 1930 or 40, you find a phenomenon known as, I call it like the great leader view of leadership. That's where you get the Führer. I believe I said that right, but that's what partly caused Germany to do what Germany did, was because they had this huge belief that there was one person who could be what everything the state needed, and that's very, very dangerous. And then that was that thought process of the singular domination, authoritarian, totalitarian views of like government, and the leadership style came from the progressive left. I hate to call them left. They are left. They're not liberal though. Like the progressive front, they view totalitarian, authoritarian domination. And so as they have progressed as a wing, so they're super popular in the United States until like the 50s. And they fell out of favor. Obviously, post-war, we started moving more to a free market, a free economy, freedom, and so they fell out of favor. But they're seeing a resurgence now. And what's interesting is if you study leadership history, you see that the progressives are going from a single individual with total domination, total authority, total control, to a committee that has total domination, total authority, and total control. And that's interesting because a committee is inherently more stable than a singular individual. Now, as a committee, you can't move as fast, but you are far more resilient to outside pressure. Because if you've got like a committee of 5 or 6 and one person collapses, you've still got 4 left and you can just replace them, and now you have 5. Whereas what Nazi Germany found out is that if you go after that one person, you can vilify and demonize that person and tear that person down, and they're left without a head. And if you stick another person in place, it might not be the same tone, the same timbre. I believe it was Gorbachev. I forget his first name, but that's what you saw in the Soviet Union. You saw where they were going for the singular leader, and finally someone got into place that was like, hey, communism doesn't work. Let's figure out how to do this right. People are starving. Let's figure out how to get along with the world. And the Soviet Union collapsed, and there were a lot of progressives, communists, socialists who were upset with that because they viewed the Soviet Union as like the holy grail, something for the United States to attain to. Just water today, folks. And that's crazy because I believe the United States has probably the premier way of running any group of people. Period. The co-equal branches of government. Dispersing the power is absolutely, absolutely amazing. That's why I prefer the presidency over a prime ministership. Just kind of off the cuff, a prime minister is like the Speaker of the House, right? So having a president and then the Speaker of the House, the Congress, right, and then the judiciary, it does a great job at distributing authority and power in the United States. and keeps them kind of fighting over power, so they can't, one single branch typically can't grow to be like an all-encompassing, draconian state. It's that on top of that, we actually have federalism where in many ways the state's power and the mayor's power override that of the state or the federal government. So that is just absolutely brilliant because it puts the power on a local level. And I know for the past like 50, 60 years, they've been trying to take power from the local level and give it to the federal government. And that's caused a lot of our problems. When you say power to the people, you should really mean we need a more federalistic nation where more of the power goes to the local authorities and less power to the federal government. But the progressives have hijacked that and said, hey, we're going to take all the power to the federal government, which is absolutely stupid. But again, this is my political thoughts. Because how it pertains to leadership is, as a leader, if you know history, you know that once you are leading a large organization, you cannot know everything that goes on in that organization. It's impossible. You cannot know that a general cannot know this situation like someone can whose boots are on the ground. So I believe it was Colin Powell who said that you always want to defer to the boots on the ground. You want to make sure you have people in good positions. That way you can trust, like when the person is engaged in the battle and says, we need to do this, as the general, you can coordinate that. But that's the leadership style that I promote. So it's more of a trust those who you delegate to, trust those in position, build a culture of leadership. And I believe this method works the best. If you study history, if you study any of the great men and women who have led, you're going to find that I would argue that this method works the best. You never want to concentrate too much power in a person. After the French Revolution, which was horrible, it was nothing like the American Revolution. American Revolution was fairly peaceful compared to the nastiness that went on in France. And so when you look at what happened at the French Revolution, it was utter chaos. And instead of bringing power to the people like they wanted, they ended up creating an emperor. And in my opinion, Napoleon was a very good emperor. At the same time, instead of having this great thriving democracy, they created something that was more authoritarian than King Louis. I think it was Louis, whoever it was, the king before them. And so I think you have to be a student of history. And I think it's very important to watch and to learn from history. Know the trends that are popular in leadership today, because you might find out that the whole reign by committee thing has actually been around for a long time, and you'll be able to pull the nuances out and see when an idea is actually new and when it's just a rebaked idea from several hundred years, because this happens all the time. It's like I always say, when authors say that leaders have to be learners, they're probably just trying to sell you a book. I believe that leaders need to be learners. I do. But what they're trying to tell you is buy their book, and if their book is a rehashed version of 100-year-old idea, you might just be better off going to the source. But that's my view. That's my opinion on leadership and knowing your history.